It was the longest and most expensive election campaign in modern Canadian history. And what started as a tight three-way race between the incumbent Conservative Party, the New Democratic Party, and the Liberals ended in a surprise majority victory for the Liberal Party's 43-year-old Justin Trudeau, son of the former Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. One of the most decisive factors in the election was that much of the Canadian population grew increasingly tired of Stephen Harper, whose Conservatives have ruled the country for nearly a decade.
The Canadian people wanted change, but they got actually more change than they expected. It was really an amazing night. It was a Liberal landslide for Justin Trudeau. People were tired of the Stephen Harper government. They weren't really tired of his policies, and we have a pretty good economy and pretty good economic management. They were tired of the man. Stephen Harper is universally seen as divisive, unpleasant, cold, aloof, kind of dictatorial, and people just got sick of it. So along came Justin Trudeau. He's a fresh young face. He had a message of optimism and hope. He had a lot of vigor and energy. He has a lot of vigor and energy, just like his father, and a good brand name, Trudeau brand name. This is primarily the rejection of a man and a government who had been around for too long. It wasn't really about policy so much as it was about personality and a desire for change.
Canada's economy, the 11th biggest in the world, also played a key role in the outcome. Mr. Harper hoped his stewardship of the economy, which emerged from the 2008 global financial crisis relatively unscathed, would secure him another term. But the country's slip into a technical recession this year eroded his financial credibility. It is unlikely, however, that Mr. Trudeau will be able to spark a major economic turnaround in the short term.
Our view on the Canadian economy is that it's still fundamentally weak, and therefore the result in Canada and the elections means nothing dramatic for the Canadian economy or the Canadian dollar in the very short run. The bigger picture of fundamental weakness largely relates to Canada's external position, and it's likely to spill over to the fiscal position over the near term as well, given the results in the elections. So Canada was already on track to remain a twin deficits economy. The combination of the current account deficit and now a likely expanded budget deficit basically mean that the twin deficits will be in excess of 3% of GDP over the medium run. And in addition, because of the 2014-15 collapse in energy prices, the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve will continue to move in opposite directions with their monetary policy stances, at the very least, over the next year or so, and that will also weigh on the Canadian dollar.
Mr. Trudeau will perhaps be more able to shape the direction of Canada's foreign policy and its environmental record.
This election marks a dramatic change in Canadian foreign policy. You'll see an end to the combat mission in Iraq, a dramatic re-engagement with the UN, especially in things like peacekeeping. The campaign promised to bring in about 25,000 Syrian refugees almost immediately, an increase in Arctic shipbuilding, and it'll dovetail with an environmental policy that is going to shift away from fossil fuels. They've said that they will pull eventually the subsidies from fossil fuels.
And what will Mr. Trudeau's rise to power mean for its biggest trading partner and neighbor to the south?
I think, generally U.S.-Canadian relations are not particularly fraught, no matter who's in there. I think, though, to some extent, Trudeau is more of a kindred spirit with the President of the United States, Barack Obama. They're both men of the center-left, if you will. I think they would have much more in common. I think probably the biggest change would be on climate change and environmental issues. The previous Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, was an enthusiastic advocate of the energy industry up there, not unlike, say, George W. Bush was down in the United States, in the way a lot of Republicans are in the U.S., where they're really looking to deepen our energy business and are sometimes impatient with climate change science. I think with Mr. Trudeau, you probably have more common ground with Obama.
For Canada's new Prime Minister, much of his first few months in office will be about proving his critics wrong and showing the electorate that he is, in fact, ready to lead. Vanessa Kortekaas, Financial Times, London.